Good afternoon, Trump's family. Have a good day and God bless you. Thank you for always watching and subscribing to the channel. Alright, without further ado, let's get into the news. And it looks like MSNBC is absolutely in panic mode, because of course they are the mouthpiece of the Democrat Party. Therefore, the Democrat Party is in panic mode as well as they know what's coming here in November. A huge red tidal wave that is going to sweep them out of power of definitely the House and starting to look more and more likely to Senate as well, to give the country more of a balance once again. But what they're scared of is people who supported Trump, people who called out the 2020 contest for what it was, people like Kari Lake, Blake Masters, and so many others around the country who've stood their ground and not have caved to the pressure from the mainstream media and rhinos with their own party by telling them that just go on with the line that Biden got the most legitimate votes ever, by any other president of all time, right? To go along with that line. And they've refused and they've stood their ground. And they've continued to call out the things in our election that are a concern, and we should have an election day now, election week. And that's what Democrats continue to push. They want to continue to count, and count and count and count until they can get their winner. And that's what the media continues to share. Cheer on. And so when Nicolle Wallace is here doing as she's here on MSNBC, she's calling for Obama to go ahead and create this commission, Democracy Commission. Whenever they use democracy, that should be red flagged all over, red flags all over democracy as it's the virus to our constitutional republic that we have, or what's left of it. Democracy is not what the founding fathers wanted in this country. Democracy is destructive. And we've seen that taking place over the decades that we've been around. And so her call for democracy is a call for again to erode more of our constitutional republic, our guardrails and things like that to ensure that wouldn't be a mob rule. And that's what Nicolle Wallace actually wants. She wants one-party rule, and that one party is Democrat. So let's go and dive into here. It says NBC, MSNBC, Nicolle Wallace, how about we create an Obama-led democracy commission to save America from Republicans can't make this stuff up. And yet, don't go out on television, tell the American public how unbiased they are. Right? Here we go. Everyone listen to this from MSNBC. Recently, I started by asking you if we'd ever been here before because I think as a country, we all have to participate in it. Because if you have kids, your kids wake up if you have anything to do with an election, if you're an election worker or a news anchor, and they want to know what happened. And I think we have to have a conversation as a country about how we might not know the next morning what happened. We might not know the day after that. And that is their point. That is their point. They're not all running to win. Some of them. Well, unfortunately, they are running to sow discord in America. And it will change everything. We will wake up the morning after Election Day. We might not even call it that anymore in 2 years. We might not call it Election Day, we might call it Election Week. Because what we are watching, and because it's so slow. It's so slow. We don't cover it as a 5-alarm fire. But it is we are watching Republicans, not just destroying democracy in the dark, breaking into election officers and plugging stuff in, or watching them do it from rally stages. Debate stages. That's where they're doing it. And I guess the reason I ask you if we'd been here before is, do you think it requires, a democracy commission? Should President Obama ask Chris Christie and Ben Ginsburg to sort of manage Democracy Hotline, the way people used to man other crises? I mean, what should we do? Okay, well, that's rich coming from the same media who denied the 2016 election, the same media who continued to elevate voices within the Democrat Party, who denied elections in 2016, who denied elections in 2004 and 2000. The same people who sat there and worked to decertify election results, the same people, those Democrat politicians who continued to bend the rules, sit there and install unconstitutional methods of voting that just took place in Delaware, where the Delaware Supreme Court just struck down the unconstitutional measures they had put in for the 2020 election in Delaware. The Supreme Court of Delaware said no, that's unconstitutional, did not go through the amendment process like it should have gone through. And Democrats knew what they were doing, because they knew it would get thrown out. But it'd get caught up in court for long enough for them to be able to out the orange man that not only happened Delaware, but it happened in many other states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, many swing states that took place, and they amended these measures any place that had Democrat Secretary of State or Attorney General, or enough people to be able to change these types of laws and knowing that it would be unconstitutional, but they did it anyway, along with their ballot harvesting, and picking up a balance from places, and trusting them with one person deliver all these ballots, which should not be taking place, weakening our election security measures integrities. All that's what a Democrat Party has done. Now in 2020 has been a little bit different 2020 to 2021. Republicans finally have had enough courage to say, hey, that didn't look right. We should look into this, and all of a sudden you are tagged with the election denier tag on medias and stuff like that. Now they sit there and they project what they do on to their opponent. And that's as the Democrat Party that is Nicolle Wallace. And this is some big news, a huge revelation in the Durham probe trial of Danchenko. The Steele subsource, the source for most of the allegations or a great many allegations within the Steele dossier. One of the key individuals in this entire saga of a whole bunch of people, including loyalists within the Federal Bureau of Investigation, setting up and framing Trump. We already know this from the indictments, from the fact that Steele dossier was purchased by Clinton, and the DNC, and also by the fact that John Durham today found out an immunity deal was broken by the Steele source. So Danchenko was given an immunity deal for, quote, complete and truthful testimony. So the Washington Examiner FBI had immunity deal with Steele-sourced Danchenko Durham and crew trial reveals. This is today. And the interesting thing is, day one, we found out that there was a $1 million effort by the Federal Bureau of Investigation to verify the Steele dossier. They couldn't verify the dossier. Nobody from Christopher Steele, the Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS and all these people, and that law firm that she used to purchase the Steele dossier, the source that's on trial. Now nobody could actually verify any of the information. It was completely fabricated. So day one, we find out that there was $1 million they offered for anyone to actually verify any of the absurd claims. Of course, it was all nonsense. The entire Steele dossier that, by the way, Director Comey used to intimidate Trump in his first week in office was completely fabricated by Trump's direct political rivals. You notice whenever they accuse Trump of anything, whether it's going after his direct political rivals, or working with the Kremlin, it's always projection on their part. They're the ones who preside over 20% of U.S. uranium capacity sold to the country that they claim to be so tough against. We'll also talk about Tulsi Gabbard, hopefully becoming a Republican. She left the Democratic Party. Hopefully I'm hoping that I believe that she will become a Republican. But she's absolutely fantastic. In terms of foreign policy, she has pretty much the same foreign policy as Donald Trump, which is why I love Trump. I think he's fantastic because of his foreign policy. And because of the fact we had record low poverty in 2019. Now we have poverty that's increased. A great deal more fit close to 15% poverty rate in the United States of America. It was a 10.5% poverty rate and a Trump in 2019. What did these people do? What did Trump do to these people in media and the Democratic Party, and throughout the country who despise him? We had a better economy. Household median incomes were at record highs under Trump, without trillions pumped into the economy, without all the inflation, and inflation is worse than expected. We're experiencing a stock market crash. We will see a too big to fail moment. Unfortunately, a Lehman Brothers moment soon. And let's continue. FBI had an immunity deal with Steele-sourced Danchenko Durham inquiry trial reveals, and so the immunity deal was based only upon, so he became a confidential human source. Because here's the real reason, okay. The Federal Bureau of Investigation needed a pretext to set up and frame Trump, okay. They didn't just want to fabricate information themselves. They needed somebody to go to them and say, oh, here's a compilation of nonsense. They were more than happy to accept this nonsense, this garbage, these false and baseless claims. Whenever you hear the indignation. When Democrats hear any claim made against Hunter or Joe or Hillary or Bill or anyone within the Democratic Party, they say, how dare you? Oh, my goodness, you're suspicious of Hunter, or that he only has 150 suspicious financial transactions deemed suspicious by banks themselves. And there are only emails that the New York Post published that Twitter tried to suppress 2 years ago and suspended their account, actually stating how can you use your influence on the company's behalf? Obvious graft and bribery schemes within those emails. And so the reaction is what you can't prove, that Hunter's emails where people are asking him for favors, and money is flowing from suspicious businesses and bank accounts into his account, you can't prove that's a pay-to-play scheme or graft or bribery. These are the same people who expect the Federal Bureau of Investigation to say, "Oh, by the way, a dossier purchased by Clinton, more than enough evidence to investigate Trump and accuse him of everything under the sun." You're talking about not only the biggest hypocrites, these people are insidious. I mean, there's a difference between political dirty tricks, which is what Clinton was accused of by even President Obama. It was Clinton, her campaign, who publicized who initially started the birther myth. And it was wrong when President Trump continued that years back, but people who started it was there's a Clinton campaign in 2008, and President Obama's campaign manager called them out. But see, again, the Democrats, they start everything. And then they rewrite history into thinking that, into making people think that, well, they're removed from all of this. The Cold War hysteria, the Democrats started the true demagogues and threw it to the true authoritarians. The people who blame other countries and blame other people for their failures is the Democratic Party, and it was started by this dossier. He'll get a conviction because of the dossier was completely fabricated. There was not a shred of truth to it. And the FBI, we found out in day one of the trial, what needed to what offered $1 million, and they still couldn't find anything. Then you have day two, we find out an immunity deal, where the immunity deal only holds up if he told the truth. We know that he didn't. And so, John Durham is actually the lead prosecutor. We know that he didn't 5 different times. So you have a broken immunity deal. You have a dossier that not only can't be verified, but can't be verified, even with the prospect of $1 million. Okay, you would think that they utilize this compilation of nonsense, you would think that some of it could be verified and truthful. None of it was truthful. It was all complete garbage. And they utilize that also to intimidate an incoming president. This is the antithesis of democracy. When people talk about democracy and Trump was a great president. If he said things that people didn't like, you know what he broke? He pushed the envelope in terms of some of the things he said. That's fine, but actions speak louder than that's not fine. And that you can say that's a valid critique, but this sensationalized coverage into the fake and phony indignation. That's the way Democrats roll with everything, and then they get caught. You see Democratic politicians saying worse all the time. Okay, you just in Southern California, you see one Democratic politician. And then there's Joe Biden has said worse, infinitely worse than Trump ever said. Especially in the Charlemagne, the God. Okay, 2 years ago, that was so bizarre, and immediately the Washington Post in New York Times came to his defense, because they don't care about being offended. They care about being offended by Trump. That's the deal. But ladies and gentlemen, this was a huge day. He'll get a conviction. We're rolling into a Trump Republican House and a Trump Republican Senate, and impeachment in 2023. All of these things are taking place, ladies and gentlemen. And they're all taking place. The pendulum and momentum is swinging towards Trump. And it seems as though Donald Trump is back. I think a lot of people can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. That's what I got for you guys though. Thanks for watching.